Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we're back again with another episode of great champions that I hate to use. And before we get to actual discussion and naming the champions and keyboard warrior battles and everything else, once again, initial disclaimer. The fact that I include a champion in this series by definition already means that I can easily acknowledge the fact that these champions are good, these champions are great, these champions do a lot of things in game well, help many people, save a lot of units, but these videos are not about that. These videos are about discussing the things, the play styles, the aspects of the champions that I don't particularly enjoy, and kind of explaining my reasoning why I am not too fond of these champions. And this video in particular actually kind of comes with a relatively funny backstory, because we are going to be discussing Venom the Duck. And that's right, and this became like an obviously clear choice of a video to make after I saw the comment section of my 6.4 100% exploration opening. And the long story short is that I got an option to get a new champion, Venom the Duck, with my Nexus Cavalry Crystal, or add signature stones to Warlock, or dupe Thor Ragnarok for the first time, and I didn't even really consider picking up Venom the Duck. I was more kind of like discussing the options of either Awakening Thor Ragnarok or going for the immediate benefit and adding signature stones for Warlock. Now, in the hindsight, I'd probably go for Awakening Thor Ragnarok, even though I dread the day I will be forced to rank that guy up. In some future, it would sting a lot more if I have to actually awaken the guy. What I mean by that is, obviously that would be prestige rank up, and I'll do what I can to avoid it realistically, but currently I do not have a set clear skill champion to rank up after I form my next skill catalyst, and it could potentially be a situation where I would benefit from taking Thor Ragnarok to rank 3, but I don't want to do it, and I hope that day never comes, and that is kind of like my one fear, that it might have been a wrong choice there. However, I definitely do not kind of like hesitate or regret in between picking Warlock above Venom the Duck, because of the simple fact that yes, Venom the Duck would be a new champion, and that's cool and all, but realistically I would never take Venom the Duck to rank 2, let alone rank 3, and I wouldn't really use him at all whatsoever. And here are going to be kind of like the reasons for it, right? So even though Venom the Duck definitely is a fantastic champion, and especially for progressing players, can answer to a lot of problems, provide you with a lot of healing, and just deal with a lot of quests by himself, that is exactly number one reason why I don't like playing Venom the Duck. Because Venom the Duck is a ramp-up champion, and many of these ramp-up champions are extremely selfish when it comes to having them on your questing team. And what I mean by that is, Venom Duck is a champion that needs at least 3 fights at the very bare minimum, normally about 4, to ramp him up, and that typically is already half or above half the duration of the quest. And he effectively is a champion that kind of like demands you to use him at every single fight where it's humanly possible, in order to be able to enjoy the benefit of fully ramped up Venom the Duck. And by that time, quest is kind of like nearly over, and I don't particularly like those champions. It's quite simple as that. With kind of maybe exception of Aegon, but typical in general, I do not like heavy ramp up champions that need to be ramped up fight by fight throughout a heavy grind, if you will. That's number one reason why I'm not the biggest fan of Morningstar, even though Morningstar is an absolute beast of a champion and can do some incredible things and is a fantastic champion, right? I'm not a fan of Morningstar, which might be another video series episode. I'm not a big fan of Carl at this point as well, just because of the same reason kind of. And I'm definitely not a fan of Venom the Duck, because that ramp up process and that selfishness, as in like if you have Venom the Duck on your team, you largely will be forced to ignore the rest of your team because of this champion. And then if something goes wrong, you're in a sticky situation. So that would be number one reason that I don't like about Venom the Duck, is how selfish Venom the Duck behaves when you actually put him on the questing team. And by selfish, obviously, it's not directly selfish, but I mean the fact that he encourages or enforces you to bring him in as many fights as you can, even though he might not be the best option, or there might be better options, but you need to keep in mind you need to get him ramped up. And then quite often by the time he's ramped up, the quest's nearly over and you enjoy the full benefit for like 1 or 2 fights. So that's definitely one attribute that why I personally don't enjoy Venom the Duck. Second one is he's not only a ramp up champion, but Venom the Duck also is RNG based ramp up champion, and I have definitely been at the wrong end of a really bad RNG ramping up Venom the Duck multiple times. And that is one of the most frustrating bits when you typically want to go for specific set of buffs, like you want your Fury buff, you want your power rate buff, you want your regeneration buff. Occasionally, if you're fighting against something like Havoc, you might need an armor buff or perfect lock buff. But the point is, typically there are only like 3 buffs you realistically really want, which is Fury, power rate, and regeneration. And that more or less kind of means 50-50 shot. And the further you ramp up Venom the Duck, the less of a chance you have to get the buff that you need. And what do I mean by that? As soon as you proc the first regen buff, it's all cool, it's all good, but you don't want all your buffs to be regen, therefore you need to wait for the next ones to proc and proc. And if you do kind of like your special one or heavy attack bank in all of the buffs that you have currently active, you can easily kind of overshoot. So it is not the most straightforward, and it is certainly extremely grueling RNG process. I remember occasions when I have spent 5 to 10 minutes in a fight purposely delaying the fight, just knowing that I need to wait for a specific buff to kind of get my game plan going in certain quests. And I hate that, I really do. And obviously RNG can work out in your favor extremely quickly. There will be those times. There will be those times when you're gonna have to go in a fight and delay it and wait and wait and wait for the right buff before you kind of get going, and it can be really frustrating. And that is kind of like the point with Venom the Duck. Him being a ramp-up champion and him being an RNG-based ramp-up champion, you have to be extremely patient. You need to take your time, you need to select your buffs correctly. You can't just go in and start ramping him up willy-nilly, or it's not really going to benefit you that much, and he's not going to perform that well. So he's a champion that requires a lot of patience and a lot of kind of like grooming and quite a bit of investment from the initial fights. Now, not to mention the fact that he's relatively awful for fight number 1, which is something you could deal with, but is still definitely a disadvantage. Also, the simple fact that it takes so long. For me, personally, I find it almost unbearable to use the champion more than, I don't know, half an hour at a time. If I do a questing path with him or 2 questing paths with him, that's it, I'm done. Like, I don't want to play him anymore. And that is a reason why I would never like invest my resource in a champion like that, because I genuinely do not enjoy that whole ramping up process. And again, this is not trying to take away from the fact that Venom the Duck can be phenomenal and can do some incredibly exceptional things, finish out fights incredibly quickly, cheese out aggression armor nodes, a lot of stuff like that. But at the same time, he does take your patience, he does test you, and it's not as easy as it might seem quite often. So those are like my biggest critiques about Venom the Duck by far. The last big critique is that even when he is ramped up, if the fights are longer, you are forced to make extremely costly decisions with huge alternate costs. And this is again that situation where I'm talking kind of like about Mysterio. One of the things that really I don't like about Mysterio, even though Mysterio is a good champion, you get that feeling that you're being punished by using Mysterio's abilities. And Venom the Duck is kind of similar situation, because once he's ramped up, imagine he's full at 10 buffs, and you go in and you do incredible amount of damage, you have Furies, you have power gain, you have regen, you have everything you need. But those buffs do expire, and only way to get them back is via level 3. Why is that annoying? Because level 2 is where the damage is at. So you're forced to kind of balance the level 3 to get all of these buffs and get these benefits of doing your level 2s and inflicting more damage or normal amount of damage. And that definitely does show, especially in longer fights. Yes, shorter fights, Venom the Duck will absolutely destroy We have all heard people being so proud of their ducks and so proud of all of these 5-second clips where a single combo or 2 combos in level 2 and the fight is over. But what if it isn't? Then you have lost all of your buffs, then you slowly and gradually and gruelingly have to build up to level 3, then you get your buffs back again, then you hopefully land the level 2 in time before those buffs expire, you do damage again, and you kind of go again and again and again. And that huge alternate cost, because you can either choose to spend most of the fight with your buffs active, but ignoring level 1s and level 2s and just cycling from level 3s to level 3s to make sure that you have all of these extra buffs working for you. Or you kind of like cut your game, your fight progress immediately after you drop that first level 2, the buffs expire, then you're left with no active buffs, and only way to get them back is build to level 3. Building level 3 takes time. At that point you're hardly doing any damage, and then when you reach level 3, again you drop that level 3, you raise to level 2 and do it all over again. So I'm not a big fan of playstyles like that, where you have to kind of immediately get level 3 and avoid any other specials to kind of like keep on playing, keep on going. So that is definitely one big thing that also kind of dissuades from me. Like if those buffs were like permanent or lasted for like a really substantial amount of time, I'd probably be much more okay with him. But the fact that, yeah, you're just cut so short and you have to be so quick, and then you're left with no buffs active. So do not like that. And again, all of the things that I have said about Venom the Duck, the negatives, do not obviously change the fact that he still is a fantastic champion. He's absolutely amazing for variant 2. Yes, for variant 2, because he's an Excel champion. He has a special node for him, which lets him gain buffs quicker and place more bleeds and whatever not on opponents a lot quicker. And he's fantastic for a lot of content. But for me to use him in any serious questing conditions, he does require far too much grooming, far too much patience, far too much investment. I much rather bring in a champion that might have a bit lower capability ceiling overall than Venom the Duck has, but has much more stable progression to getting there. Because this guy is like, well, yeah, like a rabid duck. You never really know what you're gonna get out of him, and once you do, it all can just go very badly, very quickly. But that regen's insane. There's a lot of insane things about Venom the Duck, and I definitely can see why people love him. He can do a lot of cool things. Just not one of those people. And that also pretty much explains why I did not choose Venom the Duck from my Nexus 6-star crystal, because I would never want to use him. It's quite simple as that. I'd rather pick signature levels on a champion I use every day over a champion that I would never realistically use outside of perhaps making a video. And yeah, that will pretty much do for today. Let me know what you guys think. How I insulted your favorite pet, or do you agree with me? Is Venom the Duck too patient demanding? I don't know, is Venom the Duck too temperamental of a champ to use, too unreliable, or is he an absolute beast of a powerhouse? Here is one important question though. Do you guys use Venom the Duck in Alliance War in high tiers? Do you guys use Venom the Duck in Act 6? How you guys used him in 6.2, 3, and 4? Or he's just a good uncollected champ? Because I do not have highly ranked Venom the Duck, and I also haven't seen too much of footage, and he definitely isn't a crowd favorite, and he definitely isn't featured ever as one of the best options for certain difficult piece of content. So I get a sneaking suspicion that it's easy to love this champion for crazy shenanigans that he does. He's definitely great for earlier content like Act 5 because of unlimited amounts of regen essentially. But how well does he perform in Act 6? I would definitely like to know that. But either way, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, share it to your friends, leave a comment, and all that other good stuff. I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.